Okay, guys, so here we go. This was the fun part to me. Well, when you're working on something, you just see where you're getting to the end of it. But I also wanted to share this. In the last video, video 7, I told you guys that I had messed up, and it was like, oh my God, it was like I just didn't want to do anymore because I felt like it would take forever. But I didn't give up because I'm determined to finish this project. So this is what I did. The last time I was demonstrating how to attach this to this, I sewed it on the wrong end. Remember, this is the part that was the straight end, and that's where our dishcloth is going. And I thought the time it would take me to rip it out, put more interface, and then it just wasn't worth it. So I'm saying that to say this: sometimes when you sew, you just get it wrong. You just get it wrong. So always keep an extra piece of material or extra fabric. That's why I told you won't have too much if you buy a little bit more, and you just cut and start over. So I made a mistake, started all over, recut the pieces, and it worked out. So here, without further delay, now we are ready to attach our dishcloth. So what I do is, I'm a neat freak, what can I say, I get a lint roller, and this fabric for some reason just keeps picking up stuff, which is why I'll be glad to hang it. Most of it's because the velour it sheds a lot. Okay, so I keep clean off your fabric to make it look nice and neat as you work. This is the same size, and this is really, I'm hoping you can see. So this is the edge of the cloth that we're gonna use. Okay, and this was the piece where we're gonna connect it. And all I did was I took this, I opened out the black piece, and I just neatly placed it up in there. And if you want a measurement for how much I think you should put in, I think you're safe if you put in 1 inch. At first I was afraid I didn't have enough, then I thought I had too much, but you want to make sure it is connected. Now what I noticed was, as I connected it, one thing I want to check before we go on, always make sure that they match, because when they hang, you don't want one hanging high, hanging low. Like here, this part is high, so we can make adjustments now. So when you put them on top, which, like, I'm noticing this one, let me see, it's pretty, let me see, it looks pretty even. Let me just, yeah, it looks pretty even. See how, let me see how this part, I'm just trying to make sure that I have it. I think this part is a little off as far as my curve, but as far as where it's hanging, I think we have it. So you want to, I'm hoping you want to make sure that these are even when you put them together. Just a quick, oh, let me see, because, like, again, when you hang it, this is how it's gonna hang, regardless of when we put the buttonhole on. The buttonhole is going to go in the same place, so when we button it, when we pull our loop over, it's still going to hang the same. So when you sew this, attach this, just make sure that they're as even as possible. I know I am a perfectionist, but I want to show you guys how to do things the correct way. So with it like this, as you can see, I'm trying to, yeah, as you can see, it's even for the most part. This is even, and then as you look at our bottoms, they're even. That's how it will hang. So I can take this one off now. And what I noticed when I did the first one, I was trying to pin it. Impossible. Don't try it. So give me a minute. I'm going to show you a trick to how we are going to attach this to this before we actually stitch it on the machine. Hold on one second. So this is something that I was taught in high school when I took sewing. So you get a needle, you get just a regular needle. A huge needle would be good for this project only because it's so thick. Okay, you thread it. You want thread that you can, that's the opposite of whatever color fabric you're using, because you want to be able to see it. And what we're going to do, I don't think I have demonstrated this, is called a base stitch. I'm going to stitch this, I'm going to stitch this onto here as a base stitch. And what you do is, now that we have it already on, you pick up the edge of your fabric, and you take your needle and you just put the needle all the way through. Make sure it goes through your fabric. You can even have the thread. Don't worry about the thread stopping or whatever. Just sew through. Just keep sewing like big fat stitches through your fabric. I hope you can see what I'm doing. So I'm putting the needle in the back all the way through both pieces of my material and the dishcloth, because this is going to hold it together, and I pull through. Then I just try and keep the fabric flat, put another stitch through, pull through the back. This is a base stitch, see? And it should look like, I'm hoping, see that stitch? It should look like that. And I'm just gonna do these stitches all the way across, keeping my fabric straight and keeping my dishcloth pushed in that inch. And I'm gonna push it through again and pull through, and I'm gonna try and make another stitch. My thread just got stuck. Excuse me 1 second. Okay guys, so excuse me, so again, all I'm doing is pushing the needle through the fabric and through the dish towel, and I'm just doing like random big stitches, making sure I have, you can almost feel that about 1 inch of the towel is tucked up under there, and you just keep stitching big stitches that you just keep randomly putting in, and no neatness is warranted. The reason is because we're going to take this out. It's a temporary stitch. That's why it's called a base stitch. You're just basting it in, okay, before we can finish it. And I couldn't get, you're not going to probably be able to get your needles through, so the base stitch gives you a guide when we go to sew this on. So it's not, you don't have to be fancy. I think when I finished the other one, I couldn't even get most of the base stitch out, but you couldn't see it because I managed to cut it out. But you just keep putting stitches in, just random stitches as such, because you want to be able, when you sew, to make sure that you're catching your dish towel up under there, okay? And this will be a guide so that you don't have to use needles. I'm not going to use needles to hold it in place. I'm just using this. So hold on a minute and I'll go to the machine. Hold on. Okay guys, so here's the needle that I was using. I went all the way to the edge of the fabric and the dishcloth, and all you want to do is leave some thread, just cut it. See, I just cut it, and here's my needle and thread. I'll put that to the side, and then I want to show you. Now your dishcloth is attached, but it's only a base stitch. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our actual sewing machine and we're going to stitch close to this edge right here all the way across. Then we're going to reinforce it again all the way across, okay? And then I'll show you how you remove the base stitch. This wasn't really easy to do. I found it to be a little difficult, but I managed to do it after playing with it for a while. So you're just going to start at the edge where the black fabric is, and you're going to try and stay as close to the edge as you possibly can so that you can get through the thickness. Again, it's not easy. As you can see, the thread didn't catch. Maybe even if we put a little bit of the fabric under first, because we're going to go back and reinforce it there, that may work better. So what I did is I put a little of the fabric underneath the needle, and we're just going to sew all the way across at the edges. Excuse me. So here we go. So I'm just going to sew all the way across, trying to keep that dishcloth in place That's the most important thing. Keep your dishcloth in place, but at the same time sew as close to the edge of the black fabric, I'm using black fabric, of your fabric as possible. And you should be able to feel that the dishcloth is still under there, okay? So that's one end. And what I did was, now that I reinforced it on this side, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the same stitch again, and I'm just going to go back over my edge, right along the edge, again as close as you can possibly get, in order to make sure that it stays in place. And make sure when you get to the look on the other side, make sure that the thread caught, because sometimes it doesn't. So this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew on this side to make sure that the piece we're attaching actually is attached to the dishcloth. We know this side is because we just did it. So just flip it over and do your second stitch on that side and make sure that it's attached. And again, try and stay close to the edge as possible. And I'm going to show you what may happen, which is not a problem to correct, but it may not happen on this one. So I'm just reinforcing this edge over here, putting the dishcloth, making sure it stays in place, pushing it, and putting the fabric on top, making sure that the fabric is attached. Again, stay as close to the edge as you possibly can, and just go all the way across. Go all the way across there. Okay, so now you should have, we're going to clean it up a little. You should have your fabric attached to your dishcloth, not just this stitch, because now this basting stitch that we put in the white thread, you can just randomly pull it out. It should, sometimes depending on how thick your fabric is, it can just come out, and sometimes you'll need a seam ripper. But you see what I'm doing? I'm just pulling it out because it was just a temporary stitch that helped us. And then if you look now, when I pull, look, see our dish towel is nicely connected now. And just check both sides. And if you went off a little, sometimes when you do this stitch, you get some extra stitch down there. Just seam rip it out and then reattach it again. It's not a big deal, okay? Please take the time to visit my website. We're going to move on to the buttonhole because that's all we have to do. Please take the time to visit my website, Buster Wraps, BUSTERWRAPPS, BusterWraps.com. Thanks a lot, guys. This is video number 8. Bye-bye.